You ready to roll? Okay, good. Well, I'm
Let's do
looking
it.
forward to getting into Maven. I'm looking forward to getting into leadership, all these wonderful things that are going on in your world. So thank you for taking a minute out today.
Of course. Thank you.
You bet. So let's begin our journey. I always start with this question before we really dig in and peel back the layers. 6 years ago, this pandemic changed so much about the way that we approach life and business.
Mhm.
How did you get through that era, and how has it changed the way that you go after life and business today?
Wow. What a good question. So I was working in nonprofit leadership at the time. And so while a lot of my counterparts here in East Tennessee were, at home making sourdough bread and, living their best life, it was really stressful for me. I was out trying to make sure that clients that had a lot of risk factors were really scared that they had everything they needed. I was doing grocery drop-offs um, and cleaning supply drop-offs, helping organizations reopen safely. And so it was really stressful. And I think at the time I didn't realize that it was affecting me as much as it was. And I've talked to people about this a lot. I think that we have a PTSD from being so scared, and then almost immediately it was like, what are you talking about? That never happened. Life kind of got back to normal. I remember us saying, no, it's never going to be back to normal. And then it suddenly was. And I didn't really think that burnout affected me until about 2024. And I recognized how deeply exhausted I was. And I had a significant job change, and that just really did not work out well. And it took a lot of self reflection after that to really figure out, where did this start? How did I get here? And, how do I move forward? So at the time, it was throwing myself into service. I got through it and felt great about everything that my organization and I were able to accomplish. But then I think all I was doing was kind of pushing out some of those feelings into the future to deal with.
So let's get into the heart and soul of your daily job. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of kids. It's career day, you're in a school, and to synthesize that to make sense to that 13-year-old brain, how do you explain your day job?
Um, oof. I would say, honestly, 90% of the conflict that we see between each other is it's just a complete lack of understanding.
Hmm.
We don't understand each other. We come from very different places, and I help people understand that. So my lived experience is so incredibly different than somebody else's. And it's really important that we start to understand each other before we immediately jump to being angry. And more in the world, we are living in these echo chambers, and we're surrounding ourselves with people that think like us and look like us. And what that does is it makes these interactions nearly impossible, because we just don't understand how somebody else could feel different when we have all of our lived experience, which is valid, but that lived experience has continued to assure us in our position. And I think when we start understanding that it's something that can be as silly as, I grew up not using the paper towel in the kitchen. My mom grew up in poverty. And so for me, even though I didn't grow up in poverty, that culture was, paper towel goes on the paper towel holder so you don't look weird when people come over, having an empty paper towel holder. But you don't use it. And I married somebody who essentially came out of wealth class. He grew up middle class, but prior to that, there was always a lot of wealth in that family. And I remember our biggest fight that we have ever had was over, he just rolled that paper towel out. And I remember saying, what are we, the Vanderbilts? I was just so angry. I was like, what are you doing, man? And he was like, I'm using paper towel. I'm like, paper towel isn't to use. He's like, what are you talking about? It was our single biggest fight. And it was probably 10 years before we could realize, oh, wow, we just grew up really different. We
Yeah.
have these hidden rules of the way that life goes, and we expect each other to understand.
Yeah.
So that's a tiny, silly thing. When we blow that up into something bigger, just imagine how frustrating and how hard it is to understand somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. So well said. So let me ask you this. When you were that age and you were in that classroom thinking about your life, what was your dream career? What did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to run an orphanage.
Wow.
My mom wanted to run an orphanage. This is what's so funny is she told me this years later when I was a little kid playing with baby dolls. All my baby dolls were adopted. I never was like the little kid that, oh, this is my baby, like normal. Like, and which is funny, my mom had 8 kids. It's not like I didn't know where babies came from, right? And but they were always orphanage babies. And
Wow.
so I don't know where that came from. She has no idea. As far as she knows, nobody ever talked to me about an orphanage. She doesn't even know how I knew what an orphanage was. And that just stuck with me for a long time. I wanted to take care of all the babies. I wanted to live in another country and run an orphanage.
I think one of the big things when I think about growing up, I'm an 80s kid, is Little Orphan Annie. I never really thought about orphanages as much as I
Mhm.
did until after I saw that film. And I wonder,
Yeah.
how much of that may have been floated. So, what were some of the other things in your life growing up that contributed to you helping people find this calm, this leadership, this organization? What were those foundational seeds that were planted?
Yeah. So I just remember, my dad has a very fiery personality, a lot like mine. And um, I just remember the frustration that he would have with people. And then at the same time, realizing that this fire and this what could, when harnessed well, I had a lot of leadership success. And so I think just recognizing that harnessing your skills for good um, is just so incredibly powerful, and that there are no right people and wrong people and good people and bad people. There's just people. And when we begin to accept that, and I think what happened was the more leadership positions that I took and the more comfortable I became with myself, the more I began to realize that if everybody would kind of settle in and say, okay, here's what I can do, here's what I offer, what do you bring, and how do we make that work together? I just started seeing how beautiful and how much more we can accomplish. Um, and so it's just been a whole trial of difficult personalities. And I've worked with some people that others have said nobody could ever work with them, they're just the absolute worst, but I got along with them great. It's just about figuring out, what is my role, what is your role, where do we all contribute to make the best impact.
So I'm curious, one of the cornerstones of what you hone in on is leadership.
Mm-hmm.
I remember growing up, and this isn't about any like political affiliation, but I remember being a kid of the 80s and Reagan would come on after a major calamity, whether it was the 86 Challenger explosion or anything else that was going on. And there was a level of peace, a calm, there was calming everybody down. What were those examples that you saw, whether nationally or otherwise, or even in your own life that was emblematic of leadership that you've emulated, subconsciously or consciously?
um I'm not sure. I think my mom, honestly. So she stayed home with us. And so I never saw her in a professional setting, but she was always so calm and so kind. And I saw her in leadership in our church, and just in a very quiet way. She was never in a leadership position, but I saw her be the first one to go and pick up people if they didn't have a ride, or bring food to somebody. And she just always went above and beyond to be as caring and as loving as she could to others. And that just really made a significant impact, to me, because we are so wildly different personality wise, that it was almost like, wow, what could I do? Like, how do I get to be more like my mom? And it's taken a long time to realize we're very different, right? But those pieces of going above and beyond to support and help each other really made an impact. And then once I got into the workplace, I started seeing more and more of those like, oof, I respect you as a leader, but I hope I don't treat people that way. And just kind of learning from others in that way. And then I remember the very first time I could vote was the election, the first time that President Obama was elected. And I remember just thinking, you know, how many times, because I grew up very opposite. And so how many times I thought this is the way to respectfully disagree. And this is the way to provide that calm presence, and everything being focused around hope, I think was just so impactful for me when I was, young. Um, and so that was obviously very significant for me as well, I think,
Yeah.
on that national leadership stage.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think it was kind of shocking for a lot of people too, to kind of be to watch this country enter into a whole other evolved realm that
Mm-hmm.
that was talked about for so long. Um,
Yeah.
so let me ask you this. There's all these businesses that exist in the world that have examples of good leadership and good organization. They deliver a
Mm-hmm.
product well. They have forget forever customers. Their employees are happy. What's some business models or a business model that exists that you admire, that you look up to, that in some ways you emulate with the way that you try to get people to think?
Honestly, I think it just comes down to authenticity. And I think there's just so much power in not trying to be somebody else. And so I do recognize, it's the same for nonprofits, for small business, for, all these different organizations and companies, that it becomes, when you've got the founder, and it becomes very personality focused and personality centric. And I don't, while I have a lot of things that I can come into a company and help break away from that model for long-term sustainability, we also have to recognize that when an organization starts, when a business starts, it will be personality driven, and that's okay. And we lean into, again, what are our skill sets? And I think the piece that most people overlook is that there's not one right or wrong way to lead a team. There's no right or wrong way to structure your business. There's only what works best for you. And what we see is time and time again. I'm a huge fan of the brand Spanx and the founder. And one of the things that she said over and over again is everybody told her this isn't going to work. And every time she came out with a product, oh, it wasn't going to work, or her model for doing business wasn't going to work. And she just hung in there. And that's what we see with a lot of these companies, is I went outside of the box and I did something completely different. I think what we're not doing is empowering people to do it their own way. Try it. Try it.
Yeah.
There's no way, there's no way to say it's gonna work or not, honestly. And so I just try to get people to be very authentic and real about who they are, um, to have a courageous level of vulnerability with their team, and to be very clear. That clarity, and that's easier for some than others, so I will say that, but being very clear about, this is who I am, these are my expectations for you, and how do we move forward and put everybody in their best position where they can really thrive.
So, if you can meet one person alive on the planet right now that you admire, that might help you on your journey of understanding leadership and business and what you're doing in a better way, who would you love to meet and talk to?
Brené Brown obviously is the easy one.
Yeah.
Like, so many people talk to me about her books, and the courage that she encourages. I would also say Michelle Obama. I just think that she is one of the most incredibly intelligent women. And then Sarah, the founder of Spanx, she is my absolute hero. So I know that was three and not one, but
No, that's
there's
fine.
just so many people that I think are just absolutely
No,
incredible.
that's great. No, you could have a roundtable. That'd be perfect. So, all of these people that you named have these visions that happen every single day. It permeates who they are. For you, what is it when the alarm clock goes off? What gets your feet on the ground to do this job at a high level for your clients, to change lives, and to also feed your own soul? What is that energy every day for you?
I think it's just there's something about talking to a leader who doesn't understand their team and helping, like, just seeing that light bulb go off. Um, there's nothing like it when I can help two people that everybody says, no, it's not going to work. They're never going to understand each other. They're never going to get along. They're never going to, whatever. And just seeing that moment of clarity. A funny example, I've been married for like 16 years, I think, when I started getting into the Enneagram again. I did this when I was young in my 20s, and I use it in coaching all the time now. And I was like really locked in working on some Enneagram stuff for a client. And all of a sudden I realized that my husband's not lazy. Like, and I know that sounds ridiculous, but I have a very high energy Enneagram. I have a very strong personality. He is what's referred to as the peacemaker, and he's very low energy. He absorbs a lot of feelings, those kinds of things. And he needs to rest before. For me, if I rest, I'm done. Like, I'm not getting back up again. And so I had spent all these years doing all the things, and he would say, well, I just need to rest first. And I'm like, that's impossible. Like, don't lie to me. I know that you're just going to sit down. You're never going to get back up and the things won't get done. And I realized as I was digging into this what his personality was, and that I had never given him an opportunity to actually prove me right or wrong. Right. And so it's a similar thing, which, by the way, I did then give him the opportunity, and he proved me so wrong. Like, he needs to rest first. Like, and he's just a lower energy person. And I think about that a lot when I think about, when you are at work, you're almost in a marriage with the people that you work with, because you're with them all the time. And to be able to have that level of insight into somebody that you're with that much, wow, like, that's game changing.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's where I get excited, is just helping people flip that switch and realize, oh, you're not lazy. You're not a jerk. You're not whatever. I was just misunderstanding you.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden we have this great relationship and we can work together really well. So um, that's definitely, if you can't tell, that's what I get fired up
Yeah, no,
about.
I love it. I love it. So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into that young version of you, 18 years old, ready to charge out into the world. And you walk into a room and there's a film projector next to that young version of you. And at your age now, you hit a play button and there's a 60-second highlight reel of the life you've lived. Would that young version of you believe that your life turned out this way?
Yeah, I think so. I think I was very ambitious when I was young. And I kind of had big dreams and big ideas, and I didn't know in what capacity. I would probably be confused because my undergrad is in music and theology. I thought for sure I was going to end up working in a church, and I never did work, like, not even one day did I work in a church. And so I'd probably be confused, but I think I would believe it, and I'd be excited about it.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. The one thing that you're doing by helping people understand and bridging this gap between understanding of people and helping them get along is that at the end of the day, it's a nice thing for humans to do to each other. So when you look back on your
Mhm.
life, what's one of the nicest things that somebody did to you? Whether it was someone close or it was a stranger, but it changed the trajectory of your life. It deepened your empathy of being a human being. What was there a moment like that that happened for you?
Yeah. I had no idea what I was going to do with my life, and I was working actually in a gym as a personal trainer, which that's a whole story in and of itself. But I had decided that I wanted to find something stable and, just a regular 9 to 5. Hadn't been married very long, and this lady at a temp agency sent me to the first nonprofit that I worked with. And she said, this woman's really difficult. They've already gone through like 4 temps in like 6 months. Like, she's really challenging, but I actually think you do a really good job. She said, it's not full time, it's not stable. but I don't know what it is. I just want you to go over there and meet her. And so I went in there, sat down, and she looked at my resume, which was wildly like completely like no relation whatsoever to being an office manager for a nonprofit organization. So she kind of looked at it and she looked a little skeptical. We talked for a few minutes, um, and she made some jokes about my background and the university that I went to, and I was like, oh, I don't know why she's being a little bit snarky, but I just kind of rolled with it. And then she said, well, do you want to work here? I was like, sure. So she gave me a shot. And not only did she give me a shot, but every time I screwed up, she supported me through it. I showed her day after day that I cared, that I cared about the mission, that I cared about the organization, that I cared about her. And that went so deep that until I got emotional talking about it, but until she passed away a handful of years ago, she was one of my like most she was just one of the most important people I think for me. Like she gave me a shot when nobody else did. She taught me everything that she knew, and she had 20 something 30 years of experience in nonprofit management, and just poured into me, gave me opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to screw up. And she was a challenging person, but if you knew how to understand her and how to communicate her, she was phenomenal and just an incredibly good friend to me.
That's wonderful. So, of everything that you've accomplished, when you look on the rearview mirror of your life, everything you've done and orchestrated, what are you the happiest about? What are you the proudest of?
Honestly, just helping others find their role in giving back, through spending so much time in nonprofit management and leadership. It was connecting those pieces of whether it was the organization I was involved with or another, helping people really figure out, how do I give back? And not necessarily through a nonprofit, but like, how do I serve my community? And I just see that over and over and over again, just in casual conversation and professional settings, of helping people identify where they're passionate and then putting that passion into action in a way that serves others. Um, and I can just see that as a really consistent thread throughout my life, honestly, that is that connection piece and helping others figure out, what do I care about, why do I care about it, and how do I do it in a way that helps others.
So, Naomi, at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you: family, friends, clients, colleagues, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh, I think that I am so much more low key than other people think I am. I would say, like, I'm just trying to make it, man. I think that I can give the appearance um of knowing where I'm going and what I'm doing, but mostly I'm just trying to figure it out like everybody else. I think that I care a huge amount for other people, and I am a huge fan of others. Like, I will always, I just said this to somebody the other day. They said, I thank you so much for always being in my corner. And I was like, man, I love seeing people thrive. I
Yeah.
just love it. I love seeing people find the thing that makes them light up. And there's so much space for that. Like, I don't understand competition. I just feel like we need to support each other and let everybody live their best life.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I'm just a big cheerleader.
I love it. So there's clearly a sense of energy and adventure in you. I'm curious, if you got into a time machine and you could go back in time and witness one event in human history with your own eyes. It won't create a weird tear in time. You get to see it and you get to come back. What would you love to witness with your own eyes?
Honestly, I don't know that I would, because I
Okay.
feel like we're all in a time and in a place for a reason. And so my response to that is, I just really hope that I am paying attention to the things that somebody in 100 or 200 or 500 or 1,000 years would say about now.
I love
Um,
it. That's such
Yeah.
a great answer. I've never heard that. That's great. And it's being present, it's being in the moment.
Yeah.
So speaking of, if anybody wants to reach out, they want to hire you, they have questions, any of the good business, where's the best place to go?
NaomiTheMaven.com. That's
Okay.
my website. I'm on all the socials, and yeah.
Okay. I will put all those links in the show notes. Naomi, this has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your story. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you.